Hello, and I'm Professor Yashodhan once again. And today we are going to talk about consumer behavior. Okay, one of the very important topics in marketing. And consumer behavior. What do you mean by consumer behavior? It's a study of how consumers or why consumers behave the way they behave. How consumers choose various brands. What are the processes or what things go inside the minds of the consumer when they are choosing, selecting, and using purchasing products. And why is this important for the marketeer? Because unless the marketeer understands why the consumer behaves the way he behaves, he will never be able to make appropriate marketing strategies. So understanding the consumer behavior is very, very important so that marketeer can devise appropriate marketing strategies for his products, for his brands that he is managing. Right? So with this understanding, let's look at what are the various factors which drive or influence consumer behavior. Okay, so there are three broad factors that affect or influence consumer behavior, and we'll be discussing them one after the other. The first one, okay, is called are the cultural factors. Now, what do you mean by cultural factors? Culture is a very important thing that defines, a lot of things about a consumer, about probably the way he dresses, probably the way he celebrates festivals, probably with the way the consumer even possibly has a wedding. So all these things are related to the culture, okay? And understanding the culture is of paramount importance for any marketeer, especially for global brands. Okay, let's look at the example of a company like McDonald's, which not only understands the cultural differences between various countries, but they have also managed them very, very beautifully. So let's take the example of a company like McDonald's. Okay, so McDonald's does not have a single menu for the entire world. Okay, so every country is looked at by McDonald's as a different geography. And they understand that there are cultural differences between, an India versus a Thailand versus a Paris versus a Canada and so on and so forth. And therefore, you will see that McDonald's menu is different in different countries. And that is one of the reasons for their success in India, because they have the McAloo Tikki. The McAloo Tikki is a product they have designed specifically keeping the Indian cultural taste in mind. Okay. The other example that I want to talk to you is about Kellogg's. Now, Kellogg's, when they came to India about 25, 30 years back, they wanted to reinvent, the way Indians had breakfast. Okay, and they, the American breakfast and the Indian breakfast is different in several ways, and the biggest difference I would say is that the Indian breakfast is hot and it is a little bit heavy compared to a Western breakfast. So what happens in a Western breakfast is somebody will just take a bowl, pour some cereals into it, remove milk from the refrigerator, pour the milk in the bowl, and enjoy those cereals. Now, that is not something that we can assume or we can think that can happen in India, because Indians like a hot breakfast. So what did Indians do with the same Kellogg's? They started putting hot milk on that bowl of cereals. And what happened when you pour hot milk on a bowl of cereals? Those cereals became soggy. And therefore, when the cereals become soggy, they are not as much fun to consume. Okay, so that is one of the reasons, that culturally, we as Indians are definitely significantly different from other cultures, and these kind of differences influence everything, influence the way we dress, influence the kind of content we consume, influence the kind of weddings we have, influence the way we celebrate our festivals, influence the way we manage our relationships. Okay, for example, mom and father relationships might be different in different countries as well. Okay, so all these things are a part of the cultural context, and within the culture itself. So India, while we say India is different from West, we need to now understand that within India also, if you see north and south, if you see, for example, Punjab versus Tamil Nadu, again there will be significant differences in the culture, and these different clothing they wear, kind of food they consume, kind of weddings that they have. And therefore, when I talk about weddings, it's obviously, the jewelry. For example, the wedding jewelry of a Tamilian family might be significantly different from the wedding jewelry of a Punjabi family, right? So all these differences are cultural or subcultural differences, and that need to be considered by the marketeer. The second important thing are social factors. Now, what are social factors? Okay, or one of the very important factors of social factors is something that we call reference groups. And marketeers, or every consumer actually always does this consciously or subconsciously. Now let me explain with the help of an example. Okay, so imagine a school bus, a small bunch of kids which are going to school, and there are 5 or 6 kids waiting for the school bus along with their mothers. What happens if one of the boys in this group comes with a Doraemon bag on his backpack, on his wearing a Doraemon bag? Now, obviously, other kids, observe his bag, and they also go, when they go home that day in the evening, they will start pestering their parents that I want a Doraemon bag. Now, this thing that is happening with the kids is also happening across subconsciously at all levels. A vice president in a company, let's assume that a vice president in a company is driving, let's say, for argument's sake, something like a Skoda Kushaq, okay, and is comfortable and perfectly happy with it. But what happens when a new vice president, somebody new in the company joins either as a vice president, or somebody within the company gets promoted as a vice president, and then he's driving a Mercedes? What happens is suddenly he starts getting a feeling that he needs to upgrade his vehicle. Okay, so people buy watches, people buy houses, people buy cars, and all of these are subconsciously might be affected because we are always trying to benchmark ourselves with it happens in the society as well. Women are talking downstairs and somebody in that building has bought something new this Diwali, and obviously what will happen in the other homes is, probably a discussion will happen around that, is whether we should also buy that kind of an item, right? So social factors are another very important factors which drive consumer behavior. Let's go to the third one, which is the personal factors. Now, there are various personal factors also which drive, the consumer behavior, or which drive the way in which the consumer behaves. Now, the first one amongst them is, for example, life cycle stage. Okay, I like this very much because everybody, while the consumer, this is different from age. Okay, age is also there, but along with age, everybody goes through different life stages. So, to give an example, your earliest life stage is probably as a student. Okay, right now, currently, all of you are students of marketing or students of MBA. The next stage will obviously be, when you will be young, young working professionals till the time you get married. Okay, so when you have when you get married, then that's the start of your next life stage. Okay, so you're married and probably have a kid along the way, and then finally, I would say one of the last chapters is when you are a senior citizen. You have retired, probably your children are well settled somewhere, and it's just you and your wife, typically called the empty nest, so at different stages, your needs are different. Okay, and for example, the example that I was giving you earlier,